Good evening and howdy.
Howdy.
Thank you for coming tonight to pay homage to all of our veterans, those that are here and those that are here in our heart. It is certainly an honor and a privilege for me to introduce our keynote speaker tonight, Colonel Mitch Fossum. He's an Aggie class of 1980. Although he's the Vice President at Texas A&M University, the Chief Operating Officer at the Galveston campus, and Superintendent of the Texas A&M Maritime Academy, he's probably better known for the 19 years he served in the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, as an astronaut. He is the veteran of 3 space flights, more than 194 days in space, with 48 hours and 7 spacewalks. On his last mission, 6-month mission in 2011, he flew a Russian spacecraft to the International Space Station, where he served as the commander, overseeing the completion of a vital research mission. Colonel Fossen earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Texas A&M University and has earned 2 additional Master of Science degrees. He was commissioned in the United States Air Force in 1980, and he has logged more than 2,000 hours in 35 different aircraft. He also graduated from the Air Force Test Pilot School, where he developed and integrated cutting-edge technology into some of the most advanced modern military aircraft. Michael Edward Fossen was born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but he actually grew up in McAllen, Texas. He married his Aggie sweetheart, Melanie, also the class of 80. They have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. In 2017, Colonel Fossen accepted and embraced a new mission as the leader of the A&M Galveston campus. He believes A&M Galveston is a treasure, a small campus with the proud Aggie traditions and values. Small classes with an emphasis on student success, and some amazing research programs that have an impact on our state, our nation, and the world. He encourages you to come to Galveston to witness this amazing campus, and he looks forward to meeting you in person. And I can testify he is a man of his word. We visited the campus last summer, and we actually did get to meet him. We really appreciate Colonel Fossen taking the time from his busy schedule to come to the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial to help us honor our veterans. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
All right, thank you, John. How much do I owe you for putting that plug in on the Galveston campus? In case you didn't know it, we are Aggies down there too, 100%, and damn proud of it. Now, howdy. Howdy. I'm blown away. I actually am. And Randy, I got a couple things to confess. He was giving me directions, and he said, you won't be able to miss it. There's 1,000 flags out there. And I thought a little hyperbole, because in my mind I had a different image. Anyway, I pulled up today and I saw him first thing, and I said, man, there's a lot of flags out here. He says, Colonel, I told you, there's 1,000 of them. We counted. And I'm actually blown away too, because I've heard of this park, Aggie Park, heard of the park here for a long time. And in my mind, I'm thinking we took over a vacant lot in College Station somewhere. I honestly, I didn't tell him that, and he said he wanted me to do this ceremony here, and I'm talking, well, we'll have 30, 40 people, and but to come out here, it's just stunning. The vision to do this, the support from the city, the vision from the group that made this park possible. But it's joining in. It's not out by itself somewhere. It's not out by a cemetery that nobody wants to go to. It's right here where life is taking place, where all of these kids are coming out here to play on these fields, to take advantage of everything that this big park has to offer. And you've got this beautiful place. Walking around, and I was very fortunate to get here early enough for the good general to give me a tour, and we walked around and got the insights on each of the individual memorials here today. And this is just a beautiful place. And now as we're getting into deep twilight and the stars and planets are coming out, of course I like that. But there's a deep sense of reverence of this place, and you can picture yourself back in the images that capture these wars, and the faces, the thought that's into it and stuff. And what really, really excites me is what this represents, and what you being here tonight represent. It's a sense of patriotism. It's something we're missing in our country too much right now. The understanding what words like duty, honor, and country mean. This park it's a symbol of that, but you are responding to that, and you're coming here recognizing the brothers and sisters in arms. And when you get down to it, it's an act of love. It's an act of love for each other. It's an act of love for our country and a belief in our country. As you look at each of these, the different conflicts, for me, I think back, and every person's got their own motivation. My family history, my grandfather, my mother's dad, was much older than my grandmother. And it wasn't until she passed in her mid-90s and we were cleaning out the house. And to our shock, we found his discharge papers from World War I. He was a veterinarian for the horse cavalry. Nobody in the family knew it. He never talked about it. That happened before he was married to my grandmother, long before. He never talked about it. I have no idea why he went in. He probably did what everybody else did. He was a veterinarian. He loved horses. His country needed him. My father-in-law, Jack London, Aggie class of 46, with his entire class, walked off campus. He went back home to Hereford to tell his surprised parents. He hitchhiked back to Hereford to tell his surprised parents he was enlisting in the Army. Went off to conflict, came back 2 years later, quietly came back here to resume his education. He also never, ever talked about it to his family until much later in life, and by then the stories had mostly faded, and all we really got from him was he was really wet and cold a lot, and French wine was really good. We've all got our stories. As for me, honestly, I had zero desire to serve. I knew I was coming to Texas A&M, but I had no desire to serve in the military, or certainly not get in the Aggie Corps, but God has other plans sometimes. So I got accepted to the university, found out that the dorms were already full, and so I came up here 46 years ago, and during my summer orientation to find an apartment. I had to find an apartment. They were in short supply in 1976 because of the big boom in the university. Apartments hadn't followed, and they were outrageously expensive. I sat after hunting for 2 days we were poor folks. My dad did not go to college. And I was sitting on a brick wall, it's still there over by the old chemistry building, as it got to be about this time of night, deep twilight, stars coming out, and my heart was as dark as the sky because I realized I can't afford to go to this school. The next morning I ran into a scout buddy here who was up here in summer school, and he says, "Hey, all you have to do is join the Corps. You get a cheap dorm room." Honest to God. And so I walked into the Trigon, as we affectionately call it, and I found the first guy I saw in uniform, and I said, "Hey, I want to join the Corps." He laughed out loud. I had hair on my shoulders. It was the 70s, right? He literally laughed out loud, and he yelled around the corner, "Hey, Gunny, we got another one." My parents were absolutely in shock when I got home, and to tell them that I'd solved the housing problem. And they were really in shock when I mailed home a box with all of this hair in it to my mother. And then the Air Force offered me a 3.5-year scholarship, and I thought, "You're singing my song." I've already lost the hair, so I got over the haircut. And and so, okay, you're going to pay for, 3.5 years of school, and I'll owe you 4 when I get out. And I've got a brother 1 year behind me, and this simplifies things for the family a lot. I'm in. I'll do it. Once again, my family was incredibly shocked. When I commissioned from here, I really had that intention of going in for 4 years, pay back my time, and then be on with my life. But opportunities came up. The Air Force sent me to graduate school. There's an Aggie joke about not being ready for duty yet in there somewhere. To get a master's in engineering, and then I found a good deal opportunity to convince the Air Force to loan me over to NASA, Johnson Space Center, for 3 years. So I worked in shuttle mission operations. STS-3 was the first shuttle flight that I worked in mission control. And I met astronauts, and that reawakened the dream that I had had in 1969 when we landed on the moon about flying in space. That's a crazy dream for a kid growing up on the Mexican border, but it kind of reawakened that, and I knew test pilot school was the way to go, so I applied. And for the first time in my life, I was actually, not literally, but figuratively on fire, and graduated as the number one engineer in my class. I was a backseater, flight test engineer. I get to put the technology together, but strap into the airplanes to go put it to work. And as number one grad, I got the number one job choice, so I went into the F-16 flight test. I wanted to help fly fast and break things, and it was wonderful. I spent a total of 10 years in flight test. I was at Edwards Air Force Base in California first, and then I went to a remote test base in Nevada, and had a lot of fun. If you like new technology and stuff, that was really great. And during that time, one of the things I did was actually run a test program out of Berlin. We had 8 tons of classified gear in an attic of a non-disclosed location in Berlin, and the other guys provided the aircraft for our flight test. And it was great work. But while I was there, we had the opportunity to go into East Berlin. It was divided. This was 1988. And West Berlin was incredibly vibrant, beautiful, lively city. And to go across to the east side was so incredibly shocking, so dreary, a completely different people in a world of black and white and charcoals, with war damage still visible on the buildings if you get off the main roads. What an amazing experience it was to see that. And I said, everybody in the West should be able to walk through Checkpoint Charlie and see what it's really like over there under the Soviet communist rule. I didn't see combat. My job was in the technology world, but I did attend way too many missing man formations after those flight test accidents. Of course, we always thought it would be the other guy, and it would never happen to us until we supported our next door neighbor who was suddenly widowed with 2 small children at home. And then I, the next day, had to tell my wife and 2 kids goodbye as I headed back to the flight line. That's a little tension in the house there. Got her ready for standing close to a launch pad a few years later. One of my seminal moments, though, was really Desert Storm on my active duty time. Desert Storm, I was one of the most senior flight testers at my base, and there were a lot of rules, safety, etc. And they unleashed me. You are now your own safety review board, your own technical review board. We need answers. We're deploying to the desert, and we're finding problems, and we need to get them fixed immediately. It was really cool on the Desert Storm Memorial here to see the silhouettes of the F-117 stealth fighter out there. I cleared those jets for combat in Desert Storm, and it was incredible as they launched the first wave, flying right over Baghdad, got through without a scratch. On other events on those first hours of the air war, 2 of the missile systems that I'd worked on got the first 2 air-to-air kills of the war and pretty much shut down the air war. Folks, that's job satisfaction. Yeah, it is. It really is. As the balloon went up, we were working 100 hours a week, running 3 to 4 test missions a day, trying to get things done, get the solutions, get them over to the desert. I came into my boss's office. I was a deputy technical director working for the tech director out there. And I went into the office, and he said, take a look. And there was a TV up on the wall, and there's fireworks. And I said, what's that? He said, it started. That's a shooting war. And I thought, oh my God, what do we do now? He said, take a week off, our work is done. And after working in full afterburner for 6-8 months, I couldn't process what he was saying. What do you mean? And he said, look, it's out of our hands. They're using it now. All we could do is pray this stuff works and take notes to fix what's broken later. It kind of rang in my ears in the next year or so, as the Air Force was going into the drawdowns in '92, and basically in the process of sending 1/3 of the military home over the next 2 years. And I decided it was time for me to step out and bring my family, then with 3 kids, back to Texas. With those words ringing in my ear, our work here is done. So I found my way to NASA as a civilian. And after, I gave away all my uniforms, but I found out I missed serving. So I ended up joining a reserve unit out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I worked in the F-16 program office for, until I hit 30, and they finally threw me out. Thinking back at those influences through the years, my dad, of course, was a huge influence on my life. Unfortunately, he died just a few months after my commissioning in a U.S. Department of Agriculture aircraft accident. I thought of him often through the years and how much he would have enjoyed sharing my adventures. I also recall a conversation with him in 1973 when the Vietnam War was winding down, that I would soon have to register for the draft. I got to thinking, my dad was the right age for Korea. Why didn't he serve? And I knew he'd had a motorcycle. Well, I asked him why he didn't serve. I was a knucklehead kid. Why didn't you serve? And then he told me, you remember that motorcycle accident I had? Yeah? You're the one where I met your mother. She was my nurse in the hospital. Of course we know that story, Dad. Well, that happened 3 weeks before I was supposed to report for Korea. I couldn't go. Knucklehead that I was, I said, wow, you got lucky. That evoked the angriest reaction I ever saw from my father. The emotions came out of him. He wanted to serve. His buddies all served, and some of them didn't come home. He felt bad about it. He felt guilty about it. It probably wasn't until many years later that I realized, even though I had no real desire, when God was closing doors and forcing me to follow paths I didn't think I would, or that I would enjoy, or that I would endure, maybe it was really that need to help fulfill the mission that my dad couldn't do. Now I'm proud of my son, Major Mitch Fossum, who's a combat Strike Eagle pilot with a family of his own. This has been his crystal clear mission since he was 12 years old and walked into the room while I'm reading the newspaper, stood next to me, cleared his throat. What? I'm going to the Air Force Academy and I'm going to fly jets, the Strike Eagle. Where did that come from? And he walked out of the room. Well, folks, he did it. And now as a father, I'll confess that I'd rather be deploying in his place rather than seeing him say goodbye to his wife and 2 children. but he's a warrior, and now it's his time. May God protect and bless Mitch and all of our warriors as they strive to provide security and protect this great nation. Thank you very much.
Okay.